Imagine shrinking down until a single grain of sand looks like a mountain range. And then imagine that even at that size, you still haven't reached the smallest thing that exists. Most people believe an atom is basically a tiny, solid ball. That is a lie. An atom is almost entirely empty space. If you blew up a hydrogen atom until its nucleus was the size of a marble, the outer edge of that atom, where the electron orbits, would sit nearly a kilometer away. Everything in between is nothing. Silence. Void. And here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. The chair you are sitting in, the phone in your hand, your own body. None of it is really solid. What feels like solid matter is over 99.9999999% empty space, held together by forces so precise that if they were altered by a fraction of a percent, nothing in the universe would exist at all. We live our entire lives at exactly one scale, and that scale has convinced us that we understand reality. We don't. What lies below us and what lies above us are both so vast, so extreme, that the human brain, evolved to track lions on a savanna, was never built to process either one. This is the story of the scale we cannot see. Let's start small, uncomfortably small. A human hair is about 100,000 nanometers wide. A single strand of DNA is 2.5 nanometers wide, so thin that roughly 40,000 of them could sit side by side inside the width of that hair. And DNA isn't even close to the bottom. Inside every atom that makes up that DNA, there is a nucleus, and inside that nucleus, there are protons and neutrons. And inside those, there are quarks, particles so small that as far as our best instruments can tell, they may have no size at all. Not very small, 0. A mathematical point with mass but no volume. Our current models actively rule out the possibility of ever seeing smaller than this using light. Below a certain size, the very concept of seeing stops making sense, because the wavelength of visible light is thousands of times larger than the object you're trying to look at. You cannot photograph something smaller than the tool you're using to look for it, and this is only the first domino. While matter itself dissolves into near nothingness, the closer you look, something equally strange is happening at the scale just above it, the scale of a single living cell. A single human cell contains roughly 42 million protein molecules, all moving, folding, and colliding at speeds up to 10 meters per second, inside a space smaller than the eye can resolve. If you shrank yourself down to the size of a protein, the inside of one of your own cells would feel like standing in the middle of a hurricane made of solid matter, colliding into you from every direction, thousands of times per second. You are not one thing. You are a coordinated storm of 40 trillion cells, each one a chaotic factory, each one blind to the trillions of others around it, somehow producing the illusion of a single, calm, unified you. That illusion is the only reason you can function at all. Now, the real drama doesn't lie in how small things get. It lies in how the exact same problem repeats itself in the opposite direction at a scale so large that it breaks language. Consider the distance to the nearest star beyond our sun, Proxima Centauri. It sits about 40 trillion kilometers away. If you got in a car and drove at 100 kilometers per hour, never stopping, it would take you over 45 million years to arrive. For comparison, 45 million years ago, there were no humans. There wasn't even a Great Rift Valley in Africa yet. You would arrive at a planet orbiting a red dwarf star, and everything and everyone you ever knew would be unrecognizable dust. And Proxima Centauri is our closest neighbor. The Milky Way galaxy, which contains our Sun and Proxima Centauri and roughly 100 to 400 billion other stars, is about 100,000 light-years across. Light, the fastest thing in existence, takes 100,000 years just to cross it. And the Milky Way is not alone. It is one of an estimated 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe, each one containing hundreds of billions of stars of its own. 2 trillion galaxies, not stars, galaxies. And this is just the beginning of the challenge, because even this number, 2 trillion, is only what we can see. The observable universe has an edge, but it is not the edge of the universe itself. It is simply the farthest distance light has had time to travel to reach us since the beginning of time. Beyond that boundary, space very likely continues, filled with more galaxies, more stars, more scale, forever outside our ability to observe it. We are, quite literally, trapped inside a bubble of what light allows us to see. The rest of reality is permanently, physically unreachable. Not because we lack the technology, but because the universe itself is expanding faster than light could ever cross it to reach us. Here is where the two extremes, the impossibly small and the impossibly large, collide into the same unsettling truth. At the smallest scale, you are almost entirely empty space, held together by forces that operate over near-zero distances. At the largest scale, the universe is also almost entirely empty space, vast voids stretching hundreds of millions of light-years across, containing next to nothing, punctuated by rare galaxy clusters clinging together like dust caught in the corner of an empty room. The universe is not full. It is not crowded with stars and planets and life the way movies suggest. It is overwhelmingly, almost perfectly void. And the tiny fraction that isn't void is arranged into structures so far apart that, on a cosmic map, entire galaxies are smaller than the dot at the end of this sentence. Emptiness is not the exception in this universe. Emptiness is the rule. You, your body, your thoughts, this exact moment, are an almost impossibly rare exception to the void that makes up nearly everything else that exists. And the strange part is, you were never built to feel that. Evolution shaped your brain to understand distances between about 1 millimeter and about 10 kilometers, and quantities somewhere between 1 and a few thousand. Anything smaller than a grain of sand or larger than a mountain range simply doesn't compute intuitively. When scientists say 2 trillion galaxies, your brain doesn't actually picture 2 trillion of anything. It just registers a lot and moves on. The true scale is, in a very real sense, something you are cognitively incapable of feeling, only calculating. So what does this mean? It means the version of reality you experience, solid objects, a single body, a night sky with a few thousand visible stars, is not reality. It is a translation, a simplified interface, built by evolution for survival, not for truth. Beneath that interface is a universe made of almost nothing, punctuated by matter so sparse it barely qualifies as something. Above it is a cosmos so large that its true size cannot be pictured, only written down in numbers that lose all meaning past a certain point. You exist in the single narrow band between these two incomprehensible scales, too large to see the quantum foam beneath you, too small to see the cosmic web above you. Perfectly positioned to build civilizations, fall in love, feel pain, ask questions, and perfectly incapable of ever truly perceiving the reality those experiences are built on top of. Perhaps that is the most honest way to describe being human. A temporary, organized pocket of almost nothing, briefly aware, floating in a universe made of scales it will never be able to see. I hope you enjoyed the video. I would be very grateful for your support, and I look forward to seeing you next time.